Welcome back to R&DW Adventures. I'm Darryl.
And I'm Renee.
And today we're going to take a look at the different sizes of geocache containers. Now, this isn't really talking so much about containers and what are good for caches, but rather when you see those various indicators on the cache page, what kind of stuff you're looking for.
Like size matters.
Yeah, so size matters. That's really what it comes down to. So why don't we start off? We've got a variety on the table right now, but too much for anyone to actually make sense of.
Okay.
So we'll start off.
We're going to start small?
Yeah, we're going to start with the micros, the extra smalls.
Extra small. One of my favorites.
What Geocaching.com refers to as a micro or extra small are micro containers less than 100 milliliters. They're about the size of a film canister or smaller. And for those in geocaching way back when, when I got started in
Before
2005, film was a big thing. So you'd find a lot of film containers out in the wild. They were good, cheap containers. They're, relatively watertight.
Easy to come by.
But the type of lid made a big difference. Mm-hmm. So that's what it came down to.
So some of them screwed on, some of them pushed in.
Well, they were all, by that point, they were all the snap-on lids.
Okay.
But depending on what the container was actually made of, depended on how they were going to hold up. So, your 35 millimeter film canister was the size that everyone kind of made the micro. And when I got started, pretty much a micro was a 35 millimeter film container. It was like this size.
See, I think...
So, it says, if a micro cache is less than 10 milliliters, it's often called a nano cache. Well,
those are fun. Tiny.
I started hiding a bunch of these nano caches because I just really like these. And there's a bunch of other nano caches. They're also commonly referred to as blinkies. But they're magnetic caches.
Ones.
They'll stick to each other if the poles are right.
Right.
But we started way back when a series called The Parking Knot, which was all about putting these little tiny containers
on the no parking sign?
In no parking signs.
That's funny.
Because they're everywhere.
That's really funny.
And
yeah, that's
you
true.
could put them in places that otherwise wouldn't take a geocache.
So, one we don't have is the paint by numbers.
Yeah,
and those are also...
That's very regional.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But to give you an idea, this is the size of the container. The log goes in there.
Do you have
They're
the
very
log?
difficult. This one actually doesn't have the log in it. And I thought I grabbed all the ones that had logs.
Did.
So let's do this one. Because it's probably got the log. So there's the log.
It's really tiny.
Very tiny. Very difficult to roll and unroll. It takes some skill. And all you can put on those is the initials. You can't put a full thing.
Right, it doesn't.
But we also have things like the pico tubes, little plastic tubes. Most of these aren't going to be very good when you're dealing with elements. So they have to go under lamp skirts or something like that. No direct sunlight because the sunlight will kill the plastic.
Right. Although there was one like this that I found for my first cache.
Hold it down here so that people can see it.
I know, but I was just going there. I was fine.
Okay, go ahead.
One of these, but I think the one I found was actually a little bigger. It was like one of the first ones that I found, other than the one at the park.
So, these, and there's a lot of really creative containers like that, will unscrew
right
to get to the cache and then the logs inside.
Right, and this was, the one I found was in like one of those parking stumps, like those two
parking
holes.
Blocks.
Parking blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, not stump, parking block. We did see one yesterday that was really, was that yesterday or the day before? Anyway, it was really cool. It looked like one of those, but a really big fat bolt. And it was just weathered like this, but it was inside of the parking rail, the guardrail. And it was right next to another bolt that was exactly the same size, but perfectly silver.
All right, so let's talk real quick about some more micros or extra smalls.
Extra smalls.
We've got some of these little tiny ammo can
really
containers
adorable.
which you could
them.
buy. These are actual caches, but they don't stand up to the elements. They're not waterproof or anything.
Right.
Probably the most common one that we see these days are these bison tubes, the little pill containers. Mm-hmm. These will get stuck into trees a lot of the time.
Yep, or in like the top of when the thing comes off a fence post.
Yep. So they're great because they've got the little hanging loop, and they're cheap. You can grab a bunch of them. And they're fairly watertight. And
they're also easy ones to keep in your car in case you need to replace a cache.
So we'll move on to the small, and it says small, the actual geocaching.com, and we've got a small pill bottle. So pill bottles doesn't mean necessarily that they're micro, but the definition is small containers are 100 milliliters to 1 liter. They're about the size of an apple. They can also hold a small logbook and a trade item. So like this, which is another one of those pill bottles.
Right. You could put like
hold some serious
coins,
stuff, especially logs. But most common are going to be things like the lock and lock containers.
Or Tupperware.
These are
of some
very,
sort. Yeah.
very common. You can also get some waterproof containers like the Pelican style that will hold a little bit more.
They're a little more expensive.
They're a lot more expensive, but these
they are
make
watertight.
Great small containers because they are totally waterproof. You can put some swag in, the logbooks, all of that kind of stuff. These are one of my favorites. The preforms is what they're typically called. These are green, but they're watertight because this is the water, or the, not necessarily water, but pop bottles, water bottles, juice bottles, whatever. They, in the factory, will heat these up and vacuum form them into the bottle shape.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
That's
they
cool.
look like they're little test tubes, but in fact, this is probably like a Sprite bottle because it's green. And then they have the pop bottle lids. So these are waterproof.
Interesting.
And they're very durable because it's the plastic that gets blown into larger containers. That said, they don't do very well usually in sunlight. So you again have to hide them.
Personally, I like these.
And then again, getting into the creative ones, this is a rock cache. This one we actually bought from geocaching.com way back in the day. I don't think they make them anymore. But, it comes apart. It's still a small cache container, though.
Right. Even though it's big, it holds a small cache. One of my favorites that is a lot like this one, I think I found it under a tree that was not a pine tree, and it was a pine cone. So, I love the creative ones. They're fun.
So next, we'll get into the regular container. So this is 1 to 20 liters. They're about the size of a shoebox. Many of these are the ammo cans, which are what the traditional geocache is. So we'll start off with a little bit of a lesson because a lot of people don't actually know how an ammo can works. You do have the latch to secure it, and you just lift it up, rotate it up,
and then there's something inside.
And then in this one, we have another regular container. But to close the geocache, make sure that the hook, the latch, is on the outside. But this is why they're so nice, is you've got all the weatherproofing.
Right.
And then you'll close it. This little hook goes under, and then you close it.
Okay.
And for leverage, you have this handle here, usually. I've seen them come off.
You just need to move it so you can open it because it will get stuck.
Yeah. Now, these are harder to come by, the metal containers. They're great in a lot of environments. They're bad in a lot of other ones because this, with the metal,
will rust.
Well, it rusts. They're painted, but the paint comes off and it will rust. But we've heard stories as well in the deserts.
Oh, hot.
In sunny climates where they'll heat up, they'll expand, they'll melt the stuff inside. So
it's a little oven.
Yeah, it's, again, these will all change depending on where you are. The suitable nature of the various caches will also change. So keep that in mind. But this is a regular container.
Okay, so this is another regular one that's kind of somewhere between Tupperware, but it's the Pelican style.
Yeah, that one's not a Pelican. This is actually a Pelican case. Yeah, this is actually a Pelican case. They did make some actual Pelican cases for geocaching. This actually might be a Pelican. I don't think it is.
I don't think it
is. But this
is.
was an official geocache from geocaching.com that we purchased from geocaching.com.
And it has room for swag or a bigger logbook. Right now we just have a big logbook and a pencil in there. So.
Yep.
And it's nice.
One of the things to note with
inside.
these, the rubber inner linings is part of what makes those weatherproof and great cache containers.
Cache friendly.
Because they will pressurize based on that, but that makes them watertight.
Oh, it is.
I actually don't know. Yeah. I actually don't know how this all works, but there's this little vent that is critical. If you tape over that vent, now you've trapped in that moisture. So that's one of the big things.
Ah. So this one is, by the way, Pelican. That's what I was saying I saw on here. I don't know if you can see it anywhere. But it says protected by Pelican.
Yeah.
So it's an official geocache protected by Pelican.
So this is a regular size. They do go larger than this in the regular size. And I believe what I have as an example of a large is actually still a regular, which is 50 cal, I think, can.
No, but a large container is more than 20 liters. They're larger than a shoebox. Buckets, bins, or even railroad freight cars can be large containers.
And we've seen some that are like sheds and people
Oh
who
my
have
gosh, I
recreated
so want to
ammo
find
cans.
the one. There's an ammo can you can get in.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know where it is.
Well, we did the one ammo can in Algonac State Park.
Oh, that's right. That was like the size of a kitchen table.
But again, this is just another ammo can, a real ammo can. And there are bigger ammo cans than this that are technically large. But this one, I don't think is even close to 20 milliliters.
20
or
liters.
20 liters, rather. Yeah. So this is not technically large, but I brought it out as the illustration of large, just to give you an idea of, there's a lot in this one. And we've got the desiccant packet in here, which is something I highly recommend in most climates, is dropping that desiccant pack.
To keep the moisture.
Yeah, and you'll have to change those out because they do hold the moisture once they get too big.
Right. Oof.
But yes, there are bigger ammo cans than this that are technically large. This one is not. However, one of the most common is the 5-gallon bucket. These are really common in a lot of areas for that large geocache. You're not allowed to bury them, but we've seen these explicitly like these, where they've roughed them up, they've painted them. You can't just paint these buckets because they won't take the paint.
No.
You have to do some treatment to it. But you'll rough them up, paint them, half bury them.
Right.
We've seen them where they're in
Like a
cabinets.
log.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But, these are some large containers, and then they get even bigger. So you're almost never going to see a large.
Very rarely. Oh, we found one once that was a makeshift, like with a newspaper stand.
Yeah. They'll put them in like newspaper boxes.
It was a newspaper stand that was just, the whole stand, remember? And you open it like you're getting a newspaper out, but the cache
the newspaper box.
Oh, it's called a box? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the stand is where you have the guy standing behind it selling you the papers.
Yeah, no, not that.
Yeah.
The box.
So, that's the 4 main sizes that are indicated. However, you also have that other. So that's the ones that don't fit into the categories. We don't have any of them
Is that like
to
the
show
flat
you.
pack?
But yeah, what we call the flat packs, technically those could be considered extra small or micro because it's just the logbook.
Yeah.
However, most of the time we see that indicated as the other. We also have some of those where other is a magnet where it has waterproof paper or plastic on the back that you sign and then stick it in. I've seen some of them where it's actually a sign that you flip over and sign that. So anything where there's no traditional container tends to get lumped into this other category. So it's really, really tough. And when you're doing those, you're supposed to indicate in the description what it is. I haven't seen a whole lot of those where they actually indicate it. So that's our quick rundown of what the different container sizes are.
But not only does size matter, knowing what size means matters.
So we're going to run through a whole bunch of containers. And
that
I've
are just fun.
A Funko box of giant
Fun
Funkos
stuff.
Of containers that we're going to go through and try to identify so that you guys get a better idea of what it is too. So this, and all of these I think are, relatively purchased containers.
This one is.
This was created from the infestation in Colorado of one of the pine trees, and they took a lot of that logging material that wasn't suitable for other things and converted them into geocaches. So in this case, it swings open, and we have our cache in there. And it was actually...
this is swag.
Yep.
But the logbook would go in here too.
Yeah, it's actually supposed to have another container in there. But...
like one of the
this is not going to be waterproof.
No, but like one of the smalls or micros would go in here.
But this is going to be a small container. Based on that size.
Because the inside is small. It has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, the size of the exterior doesn't really matter.
Okay. Specimen container. This would also probably be a small, right?
Yeah, that one I would classify as a small. And
barrel of monkeys
again, you have to be careful with this style container because they're not suitable for all environments.
It's not really waterproof. We've found many wet things like this. Gummy bears.
Well,
this would still be a small.
And
this isn't a liter.
Right.
And you would put... go ahead.
No.
You would still probably need to at least Ziploc bag your log.
And there's a big problem with this one. Because it had food in it.
Oh, so
you should
allergens.
never... Well, it's not about the allergies so much. You should never really use anything that had food in it.
Oh.
Now, we did have some friends in the area who figured out a strategy to bleach these and paint them so that there is no food left, no odors, and it's painted so that it doesn't look like a food container. However, most of the time, animals will still smell food, so you don't want to use food containers.
So when people use like the Gatorade bottles or the coffee cans, that's a bad idea?
It is a bad idea because animals will react to them and steal the caches, and I've seen a bunch of the...
maybe that was our problem yesterday.
Maybe, but there's a bunch of the coffee containers I've seen where the squirrels or whatever have actually chewed off the lids to get into the container, and it's largely because of what was in the container beforehand.
Okay.
Now, when we see those Gatorade bottles, we've got a very prolific cacher in the area who has a very specific process to bleach, to treat, and to paint the bottles, and then those get hung in the tree with a container on the inside for the log. So it's a very measured process, and this cacher will use thousands of those containers a year. He puts out power trails using that method, and it's all because it's a cheap, uniform method that's easy for him to do. Now, next one is this magnetic reflector.
We found these. I'm guessing this would be a micro.
That's definitely a micro, but sometimes you'll see that as another, because it's more like a flat pack.
Right, because it'll be like on...
So in this case, it just pops open, and there's your logbook, which is actually supposed to go in the
little tiny plastic bag.
Yeah, plastic bag, but that's not so easy to do. So for this one, we just left it like this so that you get the feel of, this will end up on a guardrail usually.
Right.
And typically, you'll find these where there's other reflectors.
Right.
So it's finding which reflector.
So hopefully someone puts this like where the other reflectors are like yellow or orange or something like that. Okay. What about this one?
So this one, let's hold this up to the close-up camera, is still a pill bottle, but it is a small, not just a micro, because it's larger.
It's all open on the inside.
Yeah, it's larger than that 100 milliliters. So bigger than a film can.
But smaller than a lock and lock. Again, some of my favorites. This one slides, if you can get it to do that. It's magnetic. This nice
Actually, that doesn't slide. I think it just pops.
I meant... Oh, it does. You're right. It pops off. This stays in like... Oops. This.
Yeah, so in a lot of cases we'll find these containers, these rocks, where they've put a bison container inside. And the bison is a micro. Technically, this is probably a small because it's big enough for fitting a film canister into it.
Right.
So it's kind of tough to call the rocks. This one I would still call a micro. This is definitely a micro. There's no question about that. One of the other interesting ones that we've seen out there are these specimen bottles. Again, these can be really good as long as they're not exposed to the sun.
Right.
But what size do you think that would be called?
Is it still a small or is it a regular?
That's going to be a small because it's not even a liter yet.
Oh, it's not a liter yet.
Yep. So it's
But it is totally open on the inside.
that definition of a liter is really going to help you out with that. All right. And then we've got another one of your favorite rocks.
I do love these rocks. Oh, this is still a small. This is like, you don't even take the whole thing out. You just have to Woo! And there's stuff
unscrew and
inside.
launch stuff. Yep. That was a full cache ready to go.
Sorry. And
All
a
right.
coin for first to find.
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do is
What is
on
that
our...
coin?
I don't even remember. But on our caches that we hide, we like to put first to find prices in if they will support it. All right, so talk about that one next.
This, we've seen these. This is really fun. It is a micro. Oops, it's like the size of that paint by number thing that I said. And it's nice because it's like,
Sorry.
but I mean, it's a spider. We've seen some of these like at Halloween or something like that. It only has room for the log inside. It's magnetic, so you'll find it like on a signpost or possibly in a guardrail. Maybe not, because that could get blown out of a guardrail. Usually on a signpost. But that's a lot of fun too. It's just a small. We've seen a lot like this. We've seen this one, and oh, you know what? Where is that? The bug, right? We were talking about a bug. It was a grasshopper or something.
We've seen a few of those grasshoppers,
Didn't we
but
have
we don't
one?
have one.
No. Didn't we have a bug of some sort?
We probably still do somewhere. But
Firefly or something.
let's
like
keep going because
Okay.
we've got a lot more to go through.
Okay.
We've got another one of
Another
the
one of my
bolts.
favorites. Yeah. Magnetic.
Well, that's going to be
micro.
a micro. Here's another one of the pill bottles.
Small.
It says small. And then this one will throw some people for a loop.
Right, because it looks like it should be a small.
It's 2 micros, but it's still a micro because that's the, it's just the log only.
Right. I can't open it. There we go.
So just the log only.
Just-
And what happens with a lot of these is either there's only one that has the log and it's sometimes called a multi-cache.
Right.
Where they'll put in one the instructions to look up or down.
Right.
So it's technically a multi-cache, but
Oh, that's funny.
yeah,
But-
it's cheating the system.
And, hanging in the trees.
And then we've got a 3D printed cache.
Did you print that one?
No, this one I got as a prize somewhere. So this has the couple of magnets glued to the back, but it's still just like a film canister, size-wise and everything. Mm-hmm. But, it's a nice built-in magnet cache, but micro.
Micro.
And then also on micro, you even mentioned this early on.
Oh, yeah. Pine cone. Also, so tiny.
And again, this one's a 3D printed cache. We've seen these as well, where people have taken actual pine cones, drilled it out, glued in like the bison tube pill
Right.
bottle thing, and then hung it in a tree.
Those are fun, too.
Another 3D printed cache. This one I never put out, but this one I did put out there. And as you'll notice, this is what they call a monkey puzzle.
I love those.
You have to actually figure out how to get this off, and then the logbook's inside.
There's little,
So logbook and pencil inside. You've got the puzzle that the keys go into. So this one is still just a small, actually, but it's a small because it's more than just the logbook, and it does have enough volume, but it's mostly taken
Right.
up by bigger log sheet and pencil, and I'm having problems putting that one back together. So that is the problem with those if you're trying to hide one. Don't make the monkey puzzle too challenging because you'll find, or you have a nice easy way to reset.
Right.
Some of these that are done in a big PVC pipes have a spring-loaded channel so that you just drop it down, rotate it, and it locks so you don't have to worry about it. But those are going to be your smalls or
I used to know
larger.
how to do this one.
Yeah, it's been too many years. All right, one of the other big ones are the hide-a-keys. This one's a very different style hide-a-key.
That is.
But it's the same thing. This is going to still be a micro because it's not
big
the
enough
100
for
milliliter.
else. Right.
Another one of your favorites?
Another one of my favorites.
But this one is a little different. This just has that Pico container at the end. So this one, you just drop into, a bolt's hole. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get magnetically attached to anything. It's just the bolt. Or, leave it in some rubble and someone has to find it. That one's obviously a micro, the nano cache again.
The nano cache, yeah.
Then a little bit different style of the hanging micro container.
Looks like those flashlights.
So these are waterproof matchstick containers. This one's metal. But you can get these, it's got the nice O-ring there so that it seals and makes a good waterproof seal. But these make great containers, and in this case, we have some stickers that we threw on to make it the official geocache container. And in all cases, you should have a sticker or some other labeling on your cache.
Right, just so people don't think it's trash.
Well, it goes back to you want to label the game pieces.
Right.
Make sure that it doesn't look hazardous. And a lot of people have blown up the... literally blown up the ammo cans because it's an ammo can. It's ordnance. You don't want to take any risk with it. So label it as geocache. That's actually in the guidelines that you have to label your container as a geocache. Mm-hmm. So you'll notice most of the containers that we've got here had the logo or something like that emblazoned on it. But one of the other things that you'll find, a lot of the land managers want clear containers at least on one or two sides so that they can see through and identify what's in there and if it's hazardous.
Right.
So the lock and locks like this. This one's still a small. It's not a regular, but you can get lock and locks that go regular.
You can get large ones too.
Yeah. But, these make really good containers, again, as long as you keep them out of the sun. And then one of your favorites.
Fozzie's favorite too.
Turtle butt.
Fozzie liked this one too.
This is another hide-a-key. It just has the door that you open on the bottom, which of course right now I'm having problems with, to get into the actual container.
Me to try.
Yeah, see if you can get that one off. And then we also have this one that I'll show real quick. I've seen a lot of these out in the wild. These are like your Gladware disposable containers. Do not put these out. Put those.
It smells.
Yeah. Well, it's new.
Like plastic smells.
Yes. So this is that container. It's obviously a small, because this. Yeah. There's our.
There's your container.
Yeah. So there's our film canister. That fits in. There we go. It's now larger than the film canister, so it's a small. But as I was saying, these, I've seen people use them successfully for like a day training exercise. Show the scouts how to do some geocaches. Do not put them out there for very long.
They melt.
If there's, they'll melt. If you have any freeze thaws, that doesn't work well for them. They'll crack almost instantly because it's cheap plastic that's not built for it. If it's in the sun, it shrinks, it cracks. If it gets wet, it's only a matter of time till it leaks. So don't use those. And then, of course, that one. So that is all of the containers that I brought out. Hopefully it gives you a better idea of what the sizes are and what you're looking for. We put the icons on the screen so that, but only for the official website and the geocaching app. Your individual cache apps will have different icons for it. But it gives you the idea of what you're looking for when you go out finding caches for the first few trips. Because that is one of the harder things to try to understand.
We did find something yesterday. I mean, it can be confusing. So to remember that size matters, but not just that size matters, understanding the size matters.
One of the other problems that we'll mention too, many times cache listings do not get updated after a container goes missing. So if someone replaces that container, you might have
Right.
a mismatched container for the listing. So there's a lot of variability in the sizes of the containers, and to make it worse, the listings aren't always right.
Right.
So always take these classifications with a grain of salt. Always look up and down. You never know. And in some cases, you'll find things that are actually large that only have a small container in them.
So they're considered small.
Because it's hidden inside of something else. So all kinds of stuff to keep in mind. Do you have any last minute thoughts? Because this is running really long.
I think we're good.
Okay. That is going to wrap up this video. Then make sure to check out our channel icon over there for more of all kinds of stuff, not just geocaching. On this side, we're going to put our geocaching playlist. So if you want to check out actual geocaching adventures or more of these little tutorials that we happen to do, you'll find all of those over there.